Hey, welcome to the Riverside. This is Avett's story about cats. The first time I met a cat, I was more scared than in any other encounter I've ever had with animals. I couldn't believe the look it gave me, and then the sound that it was able to create freaked me out because we were inside. We'd gone over to Grady's house after she moved in to visit. Grady is Mama's mama, and she had two of these creatures. They hid for most of the time we were over there the first night, but since it's right next door, we started going every day. Both of them were black as coal. But Alfalfa is a short-haired male, and Darla was a long-haired female. Whitaker told me they were cats, and I would be best off if I just left them alone. But I was curious, and we all know that curiosity never got anyone into trouble. At least I think. For some reason, the cats both went under the couch when we got over there. Talon really wanted to see the kitties and got down on the ground and almost stuck his head under the couch trying to reach them. I was fascinated, so I tried to help him get to them, and that's when they made one of the most terrifying sounds I've ever heard. I've been near fire engines when they first turn on their siren, and that is kind of what the first cat noise sounded like to me. But the really terrifying one was when they bared their fangs and made a sound that reminded me of snakes. When I was talking to Whitaker later, he told me they were hissing at me, and that when a cat did that, it meant to get away from them. But on that day, I didn't know that hissing meant to stay away, and I stuck my nose in there a little closer to them, and they smacked me. That's when I started to understand what they had been saying underneath the couch. Darla told me to back off or she was going to tear me apart. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing at the time because the cats emanated anger and violence. After we left Grady's house and came home, I had a million questions for Whitaker. I started by asking him what I had done to make the cats mad at me. He told me the problem was that I got in their space and didn't listen to their warnings. They had repeatedly told me to back up and get away from them, and I was foolish to stick my nose farther under the couch. I asked if he ever had been beat up by a kitty, and he told me about Ginger, who was Mama's cat when Whitaker came to live with Jig. He said back then Mama and Jig didn't live together, but Jig would go over to Mama's house a lot. Whitaker told me that when he first met Ginger, he was only slightly bigger than her, but by the time Mama Lavender and Ginger moved in with Jig and Talon, he was 10 times the size of Ginger. He said the game they used to play was Ginger would sit under the table and moan at him, so he would stick his nose under the table, and she would hiss and growl at him. Then she would start smacking him on the muzzle, and he said it was the most fun he'd ever had at the time. He got so good at dodging her smacks and was really looking forward to her moving in with him. But within a month of her moving in, they were having a new bathroom made and new floors put in throughout the house. Whitaker told me one of the guys working on the house left the door open, and Ginger snuck away, and he never got to see her again. As we kept visiting Grady, the two cats warmed up a little bit to me because Jig would get down on the floor and have me on one side and one of the cats on the other. I really wanted them to like me, but they were not as interested in what I wanted. Part of the reason we started visiting Grady every day was because she had been diagnosed with cancer. Whitaker told me that cancer was the smell of death. He told me that when a person was in the end stages of cancer, you could smell the disease destroying the person's body. Grady was supposed to move in next door, and everyone was so excited when they were talking about it. But then, right after, she got really sick and was told that she had cancer. I started to notice what Whitaker was talking about when it came to smelling it on her as we visited every day. The cats were getting used to us being there, and that meant the hissing and growling lessened a bit. Then one night, I got really close to Darla because she was laying on the bed. She didn't move when I sniffed her, but I smelled it on her. She had a similar smell to Grady, and she also had cancer, but she couldn't tell anyone about it because humans don't always understand what animals say. But I knew that smell, and I was almost as scared as I had been when she hissed at me a month earlier. At the time, I didn't know what death was, really. But since Whitaker taught me how to smell it, I started to be able to identify it. Just like Grady, Darla was getting skinnier and skinnier and wouldn't eat, until one day Jig had to take her away. When he got back to the house, he seemed very sad and explained that he had taken Darla to the vet to have her put to sleep. I've been to the vet, and they're pretty nice there, but I didn't understand what it meant to be put to sleep at the time. Everyone was sad much of the time back then because Grady was getting so skinny and she felt horrible all the time. Mama was next door with her most of the time because I could smell Grady whenever Mama did come home. Her heart was breaking, and I could tell she needed my love to help her. Alfalfa missed Darla a lot, and since Grady was not doing well, he came next door to stay with us. At first I thought it would be just a little while that he was in our house, so I tried to show him all the fun things we had. I was excited that he had come to our place, but all he wanted to do that first night was sit on a bench with his face pressed up against a wall. After about a week, he was finally moving from room to room, but he seemed anxious and scared. I tried to go up to him to console him whenever he came out, but he would get angry and hiss at me, or he would run away and hide. A year's passed since Alfalfa moved in with us. Grady battled that horrible cancer as long as she could, but the smell got so overpowering like it had in Darla. Mama cried all the time, and even after a year, she still gets sad at times, and I can tell she's thinking about her mom. That's when I try to give her lots of snuggles to try to cheer her up, and I'm pretty good at doing that. I'm no longer scared of Alfalfa either, and we've actually become really good friends. When everyone else goes away to school, it's just me and Alfalfa that are left here. We often share Jig and Mama's bed while they're gone. Fortunately, now everyone's home, but our house is currently having some construction done. Some men came and pulled out all the windows, and Whitaker told me this was like when Ginger had moved in and they were putting in a new bathroom. So when I saw Alfalfa jump up to look out the empty window hole, I barked at him, which sent him running to hide under the couch. I've really come to like having a cat as one of my best friends, and I didn't want him running away like Ginger had. Thanks for listening.